Hey, Fun Nation, week 2 is officially over. Tonight on FRC Roundup, we'll be taking a look at 3 topics that cover everything from the current meta of REEFSCAPE to discussing AprilTags and their path forward, and rounding out with a discussion on the strategic use of backup robots at events. All of this and more coming up on this episode of FRC Roundup.
This video on fun is brought to you by viewers like you and also in partnership with the following. AndyMark is your one-stop shop for all your robotics competition needs. Celebrating 20 years of quality robotics parts and superior service, AndyMark employees have over 200 years of first-team experience. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for high-quality and affordable solutions. Go ad-free and access our videos earlier when you support fun with a membership through YouTube Join. For $4.99 a month USD, you can now watch most of our YouTube videos ad-free and gain early access to scheduled content with other options also available. Click the join button below to get started.
Welcome to the show. If you have not caught our show previously, FRC Roundup is where we take a look at important topics currently happening in FRC, highlight some discussion points about events that may have happened, strategy, or really anything that correlates with FRC. If you define community think that there is a topic that we should cover on FRC Roundup, please feel free to ping me in the fun Discord. I'll be more than happy to take a look at it. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Nick Mathis. I'm currently in the 1st and Michigan region, and I'm a mentor on Team 33, the Killer Bees.
And I'm Connor McBride, mentor for Team 166 Chop Shop and an MC and game announcer in the New England district. Our guest tonight is James Comstock. James is an alum of 1523 Mars and has been mentoring 179 Children of the Swamp since 2014. He is also a fellow fun correspondent and a quality assurance engineer. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, James. So obviously, Connor and I competed week 1. James, you had the privilege of competing the past weekend. So jumping right into our first topic, we're going to talk REEFSCAPE meta. You know, our rotational topic that we continue to have from week to week, breaking down how the game develops, you know, from week to week and what we're seeing. And we saw a lot of top teams compete this weekend: 2481, 179, 118. We finally saw 2056 for the first time. So I want to get into that, but James, I kind of want to throw it to you first. How did Arkansas go? You know, what was 179 strategy throughout the weekend? And obviously, you guys ended up doing well. So just wanted to hear a little bit about Arkansas.
Yeah, we wish we would have done a little bit better. Obviously, if you don't come away with the blue banner, there's always room for improvement. But overall, we are very glad we went to the event. In our opinion, this was a mini championship division experience with the amount of top teams that were there. Like we were picked up by the number 4 seed, and we finished in terms of EPA in the top 100 in the United States. Like, to have that being on a 4 seed and it being a justifiable pick is kind of really shocking. And for us specifically, as that little clip just showed, what we kind of learned was, in our opinion, you kind of either need to be a robot with a funnel type system so that when somebody comes over and bothers you, you can still get your game pieces in, or what we think the meta is going to develop into ground pickups.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess, what was the, I know 179, great robot archetype as always. What was the overall plan, that you guys had in quals, approaching the matches? Obviously, like we talked a little bit before the show, but, you guys saw 2481 on practice day, and it was pretty much like, okay, 2481 is going to seed 1. Who's going to be, the next best robot that's going to want to play with them? So how did 179, approach the qualification matches, preparing yourselves to hopefully line up with 2481 in the end? And then how did that pivot to, once you got an Alliance 4, what was your guys' strategy for moving throughout the playoffs?
So for the most part, our idea was 2481 very obviously cannot do algae, at least at this moment. They can remove it just fine, but there's nothing on that robot to score it. So a lot of our stuff was looking for opportunities to showcase that capability and also just to get reps in on it. Because if you're like, oh yeah, look, I can score 4 algae, and you do it in match 1, and then it's a 12, every team got 12 matches. You don't practice it again for 11 matches.
Right.
Not only is it not fresh in their mind, your driver hasn't done it in a hot minute. So that was part of it. And the other part was just probably the thing that kept us in the conversation more than our teleop was our auto. Almost everybody who was competitive, I should say, had at least a 2 coral auto. And we were one of the few who actually could get that 3rd coral, score it, and then come back. So that very much was another one of our things is even though auto doesn't do a whole lot this game, if you're able to pull off a extra 1 or 2 coral over the opposing alliance, it's effectively, by the time you get to the end game, it's a 1 or 2 coral advantage in terms of just pure raw points, and you're already ahead on cycles as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Appreciate the the insight on how your team approached it. I think we saw it a little bit at Arkansas. We saw a lot of it at Niagara specifically with 2056 and 1114 and Dave. I want to talk ground intakes. We didn't see a ton week 1. There was a couple here and there that were like, okay, maybe this is going to be the move. I think 118 was one of the big teams that released their reveal video. And so James's point, it's really ground intake or wide funnel. Those seem to be the two big areas that teams are focusing towards, and I think both of their advantages. But we saw 2056 reveal the robot, arguably one of the best teams in the world from year to year, and no climber and ground intake, which I thought was super interesting. I kind of expected the ground intake for them, but at least in my interpretation, 2056 is an RP machine, and I would have thought that with how I don't want to say auto, but if you have a deep climber, the end of game RP is pretty automatic. Just getting another robot to park there and climb for there. So I was a bit surprised to see that. But kind of let's start with you. Where do you we're already seeing the meta of the game start to develop. Week 1 we didn't see it a ton. This weekend, and maybe it's just because we're starting to see robots that's their strong suit. But I thought this weekend was the first weekend that we really saw the ground intake meta start to pick up. And I'm curious to see where it's going to spiral down the line.
Yeah, so with not competing this weekend and being in the shop a lot with my team, pulling along our days, Saturday and Sunday, I was able to watch a lot of events this weekend. One of them being Arkansas, watching James and Children of the Swamp compete. And then I want to focus on 2 events that I watched a lot of, which was Greater Boston district event and Ventura. So what we've seen from a lot of alliances and playoffs is seeing that 2 offense, 1 defense. And I think you're going to see a lot of that in those district qualifying events and most regionals until you get to like your district championship and the world championship. But what I really want to focus on here is alliance number 2. They are running triple offense in this, and spoiler, they upset the 1 seed of which, to be honest, I don't think a lot of people were expecting, but I digress. 6201 and 6324, they are both running coral cycling, and fun fact, neither of them can remove algae from the reef. So they had a very bold strategy of picking each other at the 2 spot and then going all the way down, and somehow was able to get 8626 cyber sailors who shoots coral up to level 4. It's not consistent, but they have that really giant claw that goes and picks up algae off of the reef and from the ground, and they go and put that up in the barge. So you have 3 robots that are doing offensive scoring in 3 unique zones, as the 2 coral robots are each running from their own feeding station, and then you have cyber sailors that are just putting those up in the barge. They're a little bit of a slow start throughout this match, but 8626 just absolutely lights it up at the end of the match, throwing up a whole bunch of algae up in the reef, which I think if there is any form of a triple offense strategy throughout, if you have the ability to do that in playoffs at your local event or at your district championship or Houston, this might be the way to go. Adding on to this, going over to the Ventura Regional, you see the alliance of High Tide and Rembrandts, where they expand upon that, but High Tide is playing that middle ground of where they have that ground intake. They're able to just let the human player huck that thing and try and get it closer to the reef so that they don't have to run nearly as far. They're allowing Rembrandts in 5805 to run their feeding zones, while High Tide is doing a coral, picking up an algae, scoring it, picking up a coral, scoring it, doing an algae, scoring it until they run out of algae. And I think it's really cool because you're also still getting a high output of points, but now that you're also removing that algae, you're putting it up somewhere, and now it's just out of the way. So now you're not having to risk running over it, getting beached, having a whole bunch of like crap all smeared across the floor and all that stuff. And I think this is a really awesome, effective strategy, and I think we might start to see a lot of it as we get further on in the competition season.
Yeah, so two quick questions. One, why the hell was it so dark at Greater Boston? Maybe it's just the camera, but it looks super dark in the match video that's out up on screen.
It's the venue.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's a common
gotta suck,
thing at that event. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. Okay. And yeah, I think it's just one of those things that we're going to see continue to develop. I'm very curious to see, obviously with the new robot construction rules and teams that might have not built a ground intake at the beginning, and now they're looking at and going, hey, maybe this is something that we want to pursue. And I'm curious to see on where that is. I asked in chat, do we see ground intakes becoming a need at DCMP and championship playoff matches? And I don't know that we entirely know the answer to that yet. I think 2056 made a great showing of, hey, you want a ground intake, and if you don't, I'm going to make you pay for it. But I'm very curious to see how this evolves, and this is something that we're going to track throughout the coming weeks. And I think it's an interesting develop to the meta that we're going to see continue to develop from week to week. But all right, well, before we go and jump into the next topic, let's bring on Tyler to hear from our friends at AndyMark and start our first giveaway.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nick. As said, let's stop and thank our friends at AndyMark, who right now have a select 25% off sale through the end of March at andymark.com. If you go to their website, right on there, you can see all the products that they offer to you. But teams, if you are going to championships, just a heads up, you can place an order and deliver it to the AndyMark booth for pickup. So if you have parts that you need, AndyMark ship the pit or ship to event in this case is a really great option for you. Both FTC and FRC teams can take advantage of this, and AndyMark will have booths set up at the FTC and FRC pits as well too. So stop by, see what maybe new stuff is coming out, see some more stuff in person as well too, where they'll showcase demos, new products, and give attendees a chance to connect with the AndyMark team. And you can ask them anything, I'm sure. Grab and get some great swag while you're there as well, too. And thanks to AndyMark.com for their continued support. So make sure you go check them out. Once again, at AndyMark.com, the place for your one-stop shop for all your competition needs. As mentioned, we will be starting a giveaway as well, too, from AndyMark, and they're going to be away a six-pack, but it's a six-pack of bearings. So these bearings here are the half-inch Hex ID OD shielded flange bearing. Just a couple things about them. This is a heavy-duty Hex bearing, shielded ball bearing with a thick inner facing or inner race here. The bearing has more material between the corners of the hex bore and the edge of the race, making it stronger and much less likely to crack under high load. So if you're interested in winning this, innovate is your keyword. Type that in chat right now. We'll draw for that in just a little bit as we send it back to Nick, Connor, and everybody else, and James as well too.
Again from our friends at AndyMark. So jumping into our next topic of the night. One of the things that, I think is going to start to, as we see it, future of AprilTags and Vision and FRC, not necessarily a REEFSCAPE discussion, but I think REEFSCAPE is kind of influencing it. I think all three of us can kind of note that REEFSCAPE is probably the most precise task that we've been asked to do in FRC, or at least it's definitely up there. You have a 4-inch, diameter with an 1.5-inch pole that you have to place it on. So definitely one of the most accurate things and precise things that we've had to do over the past couple of years. And I'm very curious to see, where this develops. I think AprilTags and the development of, first kind of committing to them moving forward is an interesting segue. And I'm curious to see on where it's going to go. I think, the big things for this year is it's very obvious this year to depict a robot that has vision tracking and robots without. You can tell that the robots that are very quick and run right up in place, and the robots that might take a second or two and might still be great at it, but just take the extra second or two to line up, that it's going to be a little bit more difficult. Obviously, it was announced that with the new control system, the control system is going to have some vision capability built on board with the new control system. Obviously, Limelight being a partner in that. So the question that I'm going to ask is, do we expect FIRST to continue to increase the vision challenge? I think, this year is probably one of the most complex, vision aspects that we've had, and the accuracy needed to place the piece. Do we see FIRST kind of feed into that and say, hey, we're offering teams with some vision capability on board, and there's still going to be some development needed on the team end, but do we expect to see more complicated games like this moving forward, right? Do we see more precise challenges rather than, placing a ball in a goal or, placing a cone onto a peg and stuff like that? Like, do we see, the first pivot more towards a precise game challenge with the availability of, the vision processing moving forward and stuff like that. I think the other thing too, and Tyler, we talked about it, I think the first week is, do we see autonomous, moving into a larger period than it is right now? I think 15 seconds is a good number. It allows teams to, the teams that are really good at vision can take advantage of it, but the teams that, might not have the capability can still get some of the basics down and still make it a useful period for them. But do we see autonomous maybe move to 30 seconds like it is in FTC? I think it's 30 seconds in FTC, but do we see it pivot to 30 seconds moving forward and maybe expand the capability? But James, let's start with you. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but where do you possibly see the development with vision on board coming in the new control system? And do we maybe see more precise games coming out of FRC moving forward?
So I think so. And I think a weird good thing to look at would actually be last year with Crescendo. So if you think about Crescendo's auto from like a very simple perspective, it's, preload, and then what I would consider your average team who can win an event could get the 3 notes behind them and then head to all the way across the field and grab 1 or 2 of them and shoot. Now imagine telling you yourself in 2013 that not the Einstein caliber teams, but the teams who just are competing to win a district event can do that auto, because that auto in 2013 was basically the same thing, and only the best of the world could pull that off. And now it's just like, yep, unqualified quokkas did it in 3 days and just said, here's the code, have fun. So I think that not only is the camera tracking getting better, the AprilTags are getting better, your average team is getting better, and the autonomous challenge is getting more and more easily acceptable. Like when we first saw even just the whole we need 3 robots to move in auto to guarantee this RP, we were kind of dreading it. But even at Arkansas, it's a 30-team event, and there's a large portion of single event teams in there, but everybody either had an auto or they had an auto that was just like, hey, if I'll be right on that line and you can just nudge me and I'm free. It's auto has never been more kind of accessible. But talking about the FTC thing with expanding to 30 seconds, this was my first year actually game announcing FTC. And if you ever want to feel the longest 30 seconds of your life as a game announcer, game announce FTC when no one has auto. It is like, you're like, okay, do I vamp to the crowd? Like what do I do here?
You tell everyone what the weather is, and you list out the event sponsors.
Yeah, there you go. Trevor Dale brings up a good point in chat. They would dislike a 30-second autonomous for low level matches. It sounds incredibly boring. Understood. An interesting thought though. Could we maybe see 15 seconds added for like DCMP or championship playoffs? That brings up an interesting point. I don't know that the first would ever pivot to something that that wouldn't be uniform across. But I think that brings up an interesting point that possibly could, reward some of the teams that have made it to the playoff matches and say, hey, now you get 30 seconds, and if you can score more bonus points, take advantage of it. And if you don't, well, then you just move for the 15 or whatever. But Connor, I know we talked a little bit before. You don't have too much to comment on this topic, but where do you see this moving forward, and do we get more complex games out of FRC?
Yeah, so I'm gonna disagree with the vision. I think there's a vast majority of the FRC community that does not do any vision. My team, for one, we're going to be going into our event this upcoming weekend with vision for the first time since 2016. It's not always the easiest thing, but we have it working for once, and shout out to my software students for absolutely killing it. But as long as there's some form of low-hanging fruit for those teams that are not as resourced as others to be able to continue to work on stuff, I think the complexity of the game and more like close quarter scoring and stuff, I think that can definitely continue. And at least from what I've seen, and at least from stuff from last year, Nick, when we talked about the speed of the game and the durability of the field, I think the way that REEFSCAPE is played out is you're seeing a lot less car crashes, and this field is staying a lot more intact. And I think FRC is probably recognizing that, and it was like, oh, hold on a second, maybe we're onto something here. As for the autos, I could see it potentially going to 30 seconds. I'm wondering if they can implement something with the A stops where all 6 robots, if they hit the A stop, the auto ends early and they just go into telly.
Interesting.
Because James brings up a good point. I haven't MC'd or GA'd FTC, but I've watched enough to know, and at least like lower level events, like your standard qualifying events, to know you're not always going to have someone that's moving on the field, and that is tough from an announcer point of view. And I think Tyler can also attest to that as well. So being able to say, "Hey, I want this to end a little bit earlier," is definitely helpful on the teams all around and everything. It kind of also, and not that it really makes it a lot of like much of a difference for the event organizers and like key volunteers, but it can also get you back on track for speeding up if you're behind in matches and stuff like that as well, which I think would be pretty cool.
Yeah. So one thing I want to bring up before we jump into the next topic, Tyler brought a good point, or somebody else in chat as well. Maybe if they did pivot towards 30-second autonomous periods, maybe we bring back something like Sandstorm, and you either get the option to drive behind a screen for 30 seconds with a camera, and if you don't want to, then you can use the 30 seconds completely autonomous, and maybe there's a hybrid of that involved. I think that would be an interesting dynamic as well that could possibly be explored. But all right,
adding on to that, I just thought of something. In 2011, Locomotion with the mini bots, if all 4 mini bots went up the pole before the match ended, the timer would just stop. The match ended right there. So it's happened before. I imagine it could happen again. So just something I just kind of reminded myself about there.
No, good point. All right, well, before we go and jump into our final topic of the night, we'll draw for that giveaway from Andy Mark, start another one, and a quick announcement from our producer, Tyler.
Yeah, and guys, if we go way back to 2001, everybody at some point could hit the E-stop and end the match really for a multiplier. So, if you want to get real wild. So, once again, our friends at Andy Mark giving away those flange bearings. If you do win, please go to funroboticsnetwork.com and click the giveaway link or whatever it says down there. I want a giveaway, something like that. Click that link and fill in your information so we can get that out to you. The winner of that is going to be ELOT50. Congratulations, ELOT50. Please go to funroboticsnetwork.com and click that link in order to get that going. We are going to start another giveaway here in just a moment, but real quick, just want to give you a message. So one of the great things that we do that is because apparently OBS just reconnected. Sorry about that. Is because we have a lot of people that are joining up through YouTube Join, where you can click the button YouTube Join. You get early access to our videos and even many of our videos that are non-live shows completely ad-free. So we're actually taking some of that revenue we bring in to buy back some ad spots, so we don't have to have so many ads to keep fun going. We really appreciate our ad partners. We wouldn't have what we have without them. But if you want to directly help support fun, click the YouTube Join button. Become part of the people that are really helping support fun in that direction. We really appreciate it. And if you can't, just help let people know that fun exists. We really appreciate that as well, too. So we are going to start our next giveaway from our friends at the Thrifty Bot. And Thrifty Bot is giving away a $25 Thrifty Bot gift card to thriftybot.com, where you can just buy whatever you want. Since it's a Thrifty Bot, you can pretty much buy 100 of everything, I think, with $25. So go check it out. Always Thrifty is your keyword. Type that in chat right now. That's your opportunity to win. Don't forget, YouTube subscribers do get 3 times luck when you are subscribed to Fun's YouTube channel. Let's send it back over to everybody on stream.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. And thanks again from our friends at Andy Mark for the first giveaway and the Thrifty Bot for our second. I'm going to hand it over to my co-host Connor to jump into our final topic of the night, which should be a fun one.
Yeah, fun is an understatement here. So we're going to be talking about the strategic use of backup robots. So this discussion stems off of a kind of ugly CD thread that popped up the other day. I don't want to dive too much directly into that one, because I think benefit to being able to rotate all 4 robots out once after I've played that first match or 2 in playoffs. It's weird. To me, it comes down to an ethical issue of subbing out your the robot that you picked for someone that's now available. So, James, I want to throw this over to you. Get your thoughts on what you think about all this.
So this may be a bit of an extremist opinion. I think we should just pick our backup robots. I think we should just go every event.
Agree.
Yeah, every event, 4-team alliance selection. And I was at Arkansas. It's a 30-team event. And I would have rather had 6 alliances of 4 than 8 alliances of 3. I also feel that would make the playoffs a little more interesting because that last seed alliance will be noticeably stronger than they are in the current meta. And as you get to bigger and bigger events like they do in FTC, the amount of teams that are available in playoff, well, the amount of alliances, I should say, that are available in playoffs increases. In fact, last year at Orlando, which was a 64-team event, the number 2 seed actually made the decision because they were basically having a discussion, and they're like, it's between these 2 robots. And they knew from talking to us previously that one of those robots wasn't even on our radar, so we weren't going to pick them. And they happened to be the next highest ranked team. So they didn't pick them. They picked the other robot they wanted and then just prayed that either us, the 8th seed, or the 4th and 5th seed didn't pull in a backup before they could as the 2nd seed. And I don't really see too big of an issue with that. But I think that if it's an ethical question, just treating it like champs where you build your alliance solves the ethical dilemma.
No, that makes sense to me. I kind of want to add one more thing into that, just to get food for thought. I know we were talking about 30-team events. I was at a 30-team event back in week 1, but I've also seen other events, not only this year, but in prior years, where there's less than 30 teams competing. So being able to pull out that backup robot, now you're under that threshold. Do you just not allow events under 30 teams to happen, or do you not run that 4th robot criteria?
I don't think you let them happen. If you want my honest opinion, get events that have 36 teams, because then you end up with the 30-team events. You end up with match schedules where like 11-14's got to play 20-56 3 times.
I feel that.
Right. So like, I get the 30-team thing, and I know it's hard because FRC is trying to expand districts, and I think 30 is the sweet spot, about as low as they want to go. But if you want to do that, then you can't have 30 teams at an event, because inherently, like, and I'm not trying to toot Michigan's horn, but like Michigan has proved that 40 teams at an event is like the perfect amount of number. It's the most level set match schedule with 12 matches. That one you can actually get true rankings from because you're playing 12 matches, and it's not like you're playing 10 at champs. There's enough of enough teams to go around, essentially, that it gives you a pretty level match schedule. And you're going to get a bad one here and there where you got to play one of the top teams a couple times, but it's definitely a lot smaller than it is at the smaller events. But one of the other things, and I guess back to the original thing, see, I might have an unpopular opinion, but I actually have no problem with this. The rule is written for a reason, and there's a strategic aspect to it. There just is. And if you look at it like, so if I'm the 1 seed and the backup robot is maybe the next team that I was going to pick, or the next team on my list, and I strategically want to have them because the 2nd seed is also really good, or the 4th seed has a great 3rd robot, and if they call the backup in, like now I'm at risk of losing the event, like I'm calling the backup robot and getting them on my alliance to A, be able to use them as strategically necessary, and B, to also keep them away from the 4 seed, so that way that team doesn't end up there. And maybe that's an unpopular opinion, and I know some people on Chief have some opinions about that, but the rule is written the way it is for a reason, and I don't think strategically taking to your advantage is a bad thing, or not in the spirit of the rule, in my opinion.
Another thing to it is, like, we all come from teams that are what most of our local area would call competitive or higher tier teams. When I was a student, I was not on one of those teams. My senior year, we were the first backup robot, and we sat through all of elims and watched them happen on the off chance somebody would break and we'd be called in.
Right.
If you make some sort of system, like I was saying earlier, where you can pick your backup, those teams aren't waiting for the pie in the sky chance to potentially win the event. They can pack up, they can basically move on with their lives, as opposed to sitting there waiting for something that may never happen. And when we talked about 30-team events or smaller, I remember years ago, I think it was Bilfred who posted on Delphi the whole, like, hey, we ran an event that was 24 teams on the dot, and he asked the head ref, what happens if somebody says no in alliance selection? and now there's only 23. And the head ref said, "Oh, well, I think that number 2 just plays with 2 robots." And I'm like, that's horrendous.
Right.
And so the way to run that, like I said earlier, is first has a some sort of algorithm they're using for FTC that says, hey, if you're at an event and there's this many teams, your playoffs is, this many alliances. So if is an event with, say, 24, congratulations, your event isn't big enough to do 8 4-teams alliances. You're going to do 4 4-team alliances, which, if we did 4 4-team alliances at Arkansas, those would have been some amazing playoff matches, because that 4th seed alliance would have just been stacked to the gills.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is, when you look at, so like, I mean, my senior year, right, 2018, I was my team was the backup robot for Alliance 2 in our Worlds division. We didn't play a single match in our division, won our division, and we played the last match on Einstein. And I'll tell you what, like, we could have never played. I still had an absolute riot. So if we can make that available to every team at every event and give more teams the experience of getting in the play. Because, like, inherently, it's not a bad thing. One, you pick your backup robot, so now you have the option of getting 4 robots rather than trying to very quickly strategically fit whoever is in the backup spot into your team while you're under the gun because a robot's broke, you're stressed out. Like, it's inherently a pretty bad situation. Not a bad situation, but it's not a great situation, because you're trying to communicate with a team that A, is really excited to be there because now they just got called in. B, you're trying to strategically fit them into your alliance because you've had a strategy running that's possibly working, and now you might have to have them do something that they're not comfortable doing. If you can just A, pick the team, you can make sure that they strategically fit what you're looking for. B, even if they don't play, they're involved with the alliance, helping with strategy, making sure everybody's good to go, helping in the pits and stuff like that. Whereas they might have been, sitting in the stands watching, waiting for awards, right? You're just giving teams more experience in the playoffs, and inherently, I don't think that that's a bad thing. But yeah, so Tyler, you wanted to jump in at the end. You had something to add?
Well, actually, what James said is exactly kind of what I had in mind for something like that, where, first of all, I think there is a clause in place should events drop below a certain threshold that they might go to 6 alliances, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Wow.
So with that said, though, I mean, to me, that should just be the same thing for 4 teams per alliance. Just say if you don't have X amount of teams, then you drop the 6 alliances of 4. Or I don't know if you ever would go to 4 alliances of 4, but, if you hit 24 or 30 teams or less or something like that, then you're playing with 6 alliances of 4. But I think having something like that where, as you mentioned, teams know ahead of time, I think is a much better experience for teams. So that's all I had to say for that.
Hey, I mean, like I've said in prior Roundup shows before, the round robin bracket's pretty awesome. You can do 6 alliances of 4, keep your backup, still got the same amount of teams in playoffs. Just saying.
That's fair. That's a good point. All right, well, before we go and wrap up the show, let's bring Tyler back on to draw for that giveaway from the Thrifty Bot.
Oh, hey, I'm back. All right, yeah, from the Thrifty Bot's a $25 gift card. Always Thrifty is the keyword to type in. And once again, if you do win, please go to funroboticsnetwork.com and click on the giveaway winners button for that. The winner of this is going to be Hanby Beeb. Beep, something like that. Congratulations. It's in chat. You won. So please go to funroboticsnetwork.com, and that's your opportunity to claim that giveaway. It is a gift card, so we just need your email when you put it in. And thanks to everybody, and thanks to Thrifty Bot and Annie Mark for the awesome giveaways.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks again, James, for being our guest tonight and coming on. On behalf of our producer, Tyler Olds, my co-host, Connor, and all fun correspondents, I'm Nick Jr., and thanks for watching. Good luck to all teams as we enter here into week 3 already of the competition season this weekend. Remember now that we are during the competition season. FRC Roundup is live here at 8:30 Eastern on Monday nights at Fun Robotics Network on YouTube. And archives of the show can be found on our YouTube channel by searching Fun Robotics Network. So join us next week where we take a look at what is going on with First Robotics on FRC Roundup. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. AndyMark provides superior service with the reliability that teams expect. Check out their sport gearbox and ratchet sport options to their tried and true compliant wheels used by teams all over the world. From mechanical and electrical products to tools and hardware, head on over to andymark.com for your one-stop shop of high